The senator from Indiana.
Rise here today to talk about the IRS. It's not going to take long because it's so easy to understand. The IRS has got a bad track record. They often fail to be good stewards of taxpayer money and protect highly sensitive information. Yet the president and congressional Democrats want to throw another $80 billion into the IRS with no real return on investment the way I can see it. It's got a history of weaponizing against conservative organizations and for hassling hardworking taxpayers and small business owners with audits. If you look at it statistically, they are hitting small businesses by number a lot harder than some of the fat cat tax cheats. It's unacceptable to treat American taxpayers in this way. IRS does not need more power. We need to be ensured that it's going to do a better job at what it's supposed to do. Solution: last month I introduced a bill with a number of IRS reforms to hold the agency accountable and protect taxpayers. The Simplify, Don't Amplify the IRS Act would stop the Biden administration from growing the power of the IRS. The bill would stop attempts to target Americans and small businesses by snooping into their bank accounts, credit union accounts, Venmo, PayPal, Cash App. It would repeal the Democratic ban on cutting state taxes. It would hold IRS employees accountable when they release private taxpayer information and ensure that the IRS spends time not doing its union activity when it should be helping Americans when they got an issue, especially during tax filing season. Taxpayer deserves the best possible service we can provide. We can debate how much money the IRS needs. It needs to do its job right first before we give it more money. The solution is the Don't Amplify the IRS Act. Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the Finance Committee be discharged from further consideration of S 4046 and that the Senate proceed to its immediate consideration. Further ask that the bill be considered read a third time and passed, and that the motion to reconsider be considered, made, and laid upon the table.
Is there objection?
Reserving the right to object, Mr. President.
The senator for Oregon.
Thank you, Mr. President. And it's not an atomic secret around here that I very much enjoy working with our colleague from Indiana. We talk often about issues like health care and economic priorities, and I will just say that I wish we agreed on this one as well. Colleagues, the net effect of this proposal is to hobble the IRS and let the wealthiest in America get out of paying what they owe. And there's a lot to discuss here, and like Senator Braun, I'm going to keep this short. First, I think it is important to get at this back and forth between the political parties. I see the President of the Senate and the Chair, and he too has been interested in tax reform. And look, I'd be the first to say that the tax system in many respects is just broken, just a mess. Now, the debate with respect to the role of the parties needs to start with what happened in 2017. In 2017, we had the president's tax reform proposal, President Trump's proposal, comprehensive proposal, all kinds of changes. If Senate Republicans had wanted to fix the IRS and do what our colleague from Indiana is talking about and simplify the system, Mr. President, they could have done that in the 2017 tax law. Big opportunity, everything in front of us. I and others had worked on a bipartisan bill. Mr. President, our former colleague, Senator Gregg, our former colleague, Senator Coates, he and I, the two of them, we had bipartisan bills. Part of it was simplifying the system, and Republicans in 2017 passed on that. They made the tax code even more complicated. So that's point number one. Point two is the agency is struggling with basic services because year after year, there have been Republican budget cuts that have decimated the ability of the agency to meet people's needs. Now, Republicans are the guy in the hot dog suit, swearing up and down that they're trying to find the guy who did this. And I'm just going to talk for a moment about how this happened. Because when the IRS struggles to enforce the tax laws, wealthy tax cheats are able to skip out on paying what they owe. They want to keep it that way. Now, that was not always the case, Mr. President. Ronald Reagan, nobody's idea of somebody who worshiped big government, increased the number of employees at the IRS over his 8 years in office. There used to be bipartisan agreement on these kinds of big issues, just like I pursued with Senator Gregg, our former colleague, and Senator Coates. Used to be bipartisan agreement that the IRS was able to do its job if there was basic tax fairness, making sure that everybody paid their fair share. So much for those days. Now, what we have are wall-to-wall attacks from our colleagues on the other side, budget cuts that hurt middle-class taxpayers and boost wealthy tax cheats. Now, I'll close with just a couple of specifics. If you want more secrecy and more dark money influencing our political system, and I've had more than 1,000 open to everybody town hall meetings at home, Mr. President, there are no rallies for more dark money and more secrecy in the political system. But regrettably, that's exactly what you get with the proposal from our colleagues on the other side. In 2018, on the same day that the Justice Department unveiled charges against a Russian spy who was working to influence our elections, the Trump administration, out of nowhere, basically blindsided the public by opening the floodgates to foreign money and special interest dollars in our elections. The rule makes it even easier for powerful people to try to hotwire our elections. As it stands today, that rule can be overturned. Regrettably, this proposal locks it in place with black letter law. We're coming up on the election season, of course. My home state just had primaries. Families from sea to shining sea getting bombarded by political ads and mailers. When there is more dark money in politics, voters are thrown into the shadows. It is even harder for them to figure out who's trying to influence the vote. Is the ad paid for by a polluting corporation? Is it paid for by a foreign power who wishes to undermine our security? Is it paid for by a wealthy tax cheat who has absolutely no interest in working people in America? Across the street, there are 6 Republicans on the Supreme Court who seem to look at every opportunity and embrace it to have more dark money make its ways into the nooks and crannies of our political system, Mr. President. For example, just a few days ago, the court ruled on a campaign finance case brought by our colleague from Texas, Senator Cruz. The 6 Republican justices sided with the Republican, senator, a huge win for the most powerful political donors who, as far as I can tell, are going to be able to funnel more shady payoffs directly into the bank accounts of wealthy incumbent Republicans. Colleagues, the Congress does not have to go along with what I think is just a pillaging of core democratic principles. There ought to be less money, less secrecy in our elections, not more. For these reasons, I object, and I want to tell my colleague from Indiana, I look forward to getting back to working with him on topics where we have broad agreement. Mr. President, I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Objection is heard.
Mr. President.
Senator from Indiana.
Look forward to working with my colleague because health care, in my opinion, is one of the biggest issues that besets the country. He's pledged to look at maybe trying to reform it before we get more government involved with it. Hot off the press, $19 billion in improper earned income tax credits from the IRS. Let's fix the place before we give it more money. I yield the floor.